Okay. So in 2010, I was lucky enough to be selected to receive a visa to come to the United States and work. I originally moved with my family in Taunton, but I knew I wanted to be in the city, so I moved to Somerville. I knew no one in Somerville, but I was attracted to this city's friendliness and saw how it embraced its immigrant community. Some of this city's most successful businesses were started by immigrants, including Taco Loco in East Somerville and tech companies like Tulip and Form Labs. When I moved here, the first person I met was Rich Brenner, who later introduced me to Steve Mackey. In fact, they were the ones who encouraged me to get involved in the community. And if you look at my LinkedIn profile, you will see that I've volunteered for the chamber since I moved to Somerville in 2011. But when I came here, despite holding an advanced degree, I had trouble finding work. So I worked as a custodian at MIT and accepted an internship at the Department of Environmental Protection, which is where I currently work. When I came here, I saw that our government did not always work for you when you need it most. I experienced this firsthand when I tried to sign up for mass help. It was denied because they said I wasn't below 21 and I didn't have a dependent. So many people in Somerville have similar experience. Whether it be with housing or education, I've experienced these issues as well. I know what it's like to move every year because of rising rents. I know how issues of environmental justice are intertwined with issues of racial justice. There has been progress on some of these issues, don't get me wrong, but it has not happened quick enough. And until we have a government that reflects the population that is serving, how can we talk about issues like racial equity and environmental justice? That is why I'm running for mayor, to accelerate our community's progress on these issues and change the conversation. I have a track record that demonstrates what we can achieve if I'm elected mayor. On the city council, for example, I led the effort to create the Office of Housing Stability because I know how it feels not to know where you're going to live. I led the fight to ban racial profiling because it was a step towards justice. And I've been there to tackle problems, big and small, whenever our neighbors have needed someone to fight for them. That includes our small businesses in our community. On that note, at the onset of the pandemic, I knew that our businesses in our community and in the businesses that make our city what it is were in danger. So I was glad to work with my fellow councillor to step up and use the authority and power of the city council to help our small business. We work to help businesses adapt, allowing bars and restaurants to set up outside dining arrangements. Also streamline the application and approval process through Commissioner Lynch. I supported a 50% cap for third-party delivery fees. I also voted to support the creation of a $5 million fund to help small businesses impacted by the pandemic. This is what I would do as mayor. Work with our local businesses to ensure that they have the tools they need to succeed and foster an environment that ensures their growth. But how do we foster this environment? I believe that we need to approach it holistically, because when some of these small businesses thrive, our communities thrive as well. When people have a clean city with good paying jobs, affordable housing, and quality schools, somebody has happy residents with disposable income where they can spend at local businesses. The mission of the next mayor will be tasked with creating this environment. I have a vision for this environment, and I would like to share that with you. In order for our businesses to thrive, people in Somerville need a place to live. But not just a place to live, a place where they can afford to live. That is why I'm committed to working with the Somerville Community Land Trust to increase affordable housing in our community. People want to live in a community that provides their children with the best education, not just during elementary, middle, and high school, but during preschool as well. And that is why I'm committed to implementing universal pre-K in Somerville. Universal pre-K will make it easier for families to stay here. As you can see, the trajectory of the city is not being created with families in mind. We are building the state-of-the-art high school, where the families that are going to go there. Parents will be able to work, and children will learn the skills they need to succeed in life at an early age if we implement a universal pre-K. People want to live in a community that is clean, where they can take their children to parks, enjoy the outdoors. That is why I'm committed to putting Somerville on the path to carbon neutral and expanding the amount of green space in our community. We are also fortunate to be a hub for biotech and science in Somerville. And I'm grateful that organizations like Greentown Labs call Somerville home. I want to attract more organizations to Somerville that are committed to finding solutions to make our environment cleaner and our community more sustainable. And finally, people want to live in a community that has 21st century transportation options and is also accessible. As mayor, I will work to make public transportation free in Somerville and add more protected bike lanes and bus lanes. When we increase the amount of transportation options in Somerville, developers are able to build developments with less parking. This allows them to increase more retail space, affordable housing in their development, which in turn allow us to expand our commercial tax base and bring in additional revenue. Investment like this will set Somerville apart from other cities. This investment will make it easier for people to stay and start their family in the city and create an environment that allows our communities' businesses to thrive. This will also attract businesses to our city. And I'm fully supportive of bringing new businesses in Somerville. In fact, we need to expand our tax base, especially our commercial tax base, to fund this investment in our community. And one way we can expand our tax base is through the city's brownfield program, which is what I've championed on the city council. By transforming vacant, distressed, contaminated sites into new community assets like parks, civil spaces, affordable housing, and commercial development, we return property tax roll, create safe neighborhoods, more housing, and new jobs. But development cannot displace current business owners or current residents. And any jobs that are created here need to pay their employees a living wage. Development needs to be done with the community and its residents in mind. And that is why, as mayor, I plan on proposing a citywide community benefits ordinance. This ordinance will require large developers to negotiate a community benefit agreement with a group from the neighborhood in which that development is happening. That includes those most at risk of displacement. This agreement will include requirements for a variety of items like increased green space, small business protection, and jobs training. I will also ensure that all developers hire locally and fund job training program opportunities for residents. Excuse me. Somerville is one of the most attractive places in Massachusetts and in the country for companies looking to start and expand their business. Workforces want to be in Somerville, not out in an office park in Foxborough. But when this company comes to Somerville, we need to ensure that they're investing in our community, in our neighbors, and in our children. And as mayor, I will ensure that happens. One last thing that I want to say is that while we may not agree on everything, I will always take time to listen to members of the chamber and hear your thoughts and concerns. As a person of color, I know what that's like, to feel like you are not being heard by your government, to feel like nobody is listening, It is the most frustrating feeling in the world, which is why when I ran for city council, I made it a commitment to listen to everyone, whether they voted for me or not. And that is my commitment that I will keep as mayor. I'll be a mayor for all of Somerville. Thank you, Steve, and I thank you to the members of the chamber for inviting me here to speak. I'll welcome any questions.
Thank you. Well, I'll open it up with the first question. I'd like, if I could invite others, you can raise your hand virtually or in real life, or you can write into the chat, and we're going to try to get to everybody, but I'm going to start with, I'll open up with the first one. It's a 2-year term. Your remarks, you certainly covered a great deal of ground, very open about all of the issues or many issues. What would be the priority the first week you get into office?
Thank you, Steve. That is an interesting question. I want to say my first priority, is affordable housing and universal pre-K. Like I said, we are not building Somerville for family. The trajectory of the city right now, I don't think that is being built with families in mind. If you even look at the lottery for the housing, it's just one bedroom. If you look at it, you don't even see a lottery for like 2-3 bedrooms. So we need to redefine the Somerville we want. That's why we need to incentivize families to move back to the city. Otherwise, we'll build a state-of-the-art high school, and where are the families that are going to go there? So affordable housing and universal pre-K.
All right, thank you. Pat Kane.
Hi. Somerville in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years has spent a lot of money on stuff. We got a new high school. We put some new sewers in. We paid for the green line. We did all that stuff.
Yeah, I need to place an order if I could.
At some point, people can't follow directions about muting. At some point, we're going to have to pay for all that stuff. The normal line is, we'll just raise taxes, particularly on the businesses. Do you have any great ideas on how to pay for all that stuff and not tax the businesses out of the city?
Thank you, Pat. Good to see you. Great question. I know this pandemic has kept us apart for such a long time. One of the things I said, when I was having this introduction, I talked about expanding our commercial tax base. That is something that we will use to leverage that. And also this community benefit agreement with outside big developers. It's also very important. We also need to redefine our pilot agreement with all these universities around us, with Tufts and other nonprofit. People need to be able to pay their fair share. Like Tufts is not paying as much as it's paying in Boston. I know that we have a Tufts representative here. I love Tufts, but we need this. That we have, the tools that we can use to leverage all this. In fact, between you and me, do you think Tufts, as a nonprofit, is paying their fair share?
I don't think I know enough of the arrangement to comment properly.
Anyway, no, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. You're a friend. That's why I'm just, yeah, but this is like, this is what I would do. Thank you.
I figured I asked you a question. You could ask me one, so.
You're on mute, Steve.
Sorry. Mark Need again comments, it's happening. Tons of tax money is starting to roll in from development, and the city is in good shape in terms of our debt ratio. Mayor Joe Curtatone has managed city finances extremely well. Thank you, Councilor Need again. Was there a question there? No question. Andrew Lynn asks, can you speak to how you will address the tensions between bike, bus lanes, and parking needs, particularly in Davis Square?
That's an interesting question, Andrew. I want to say there's no silver bullet for this, on how to address this. So we need to have a collaborative process, bring all the stakeholders and find solutions to this. So I cannot say that there's a silver bullet in addressing something like this.
All right. Thank you. Tom Bent Electrical.
Hi, Will. How are you?
Good to see you, Tom.
I got a couple of questions. One is, you talked a lot about some of the initiatives that you want to do, more affordable housing, pre-K, all that. And, but, that will require, a lot of money. And I know, things are happening in Somerville, but some of the expansion is interesting because it's shifted from, office and retail and things like that. Now labs are very, there's a lot of lab interest, not only here in Somerville, but all around us in the inner core. So we're competing with other cities and towns that are right on our doorstep. Medford, there's some labs proposed for Mystic Ave in Medford. Waltham, the Watertown Arsenal is being changed to laboratories. So Somerville is going to be in a competition for these facilities. And we already have the highest linkage fees in the state. And if we start adding more and more requirements on developers, at some point we will be less attractive to come here. So how do you feel? How are you going to kind of balance that effort that we don't tax ourselves out of the developers piece and still maintain the things that you want to do? Because one of the concerns that we are is, and I hear from developers all the time telling me, boy, it's an awful expensive to do business in Somerville, and what I'm worried about at some point, we're going to go over the line on that. I was just kind of curious to see what your thoughts are there.
Thank you, Tom. That's an interesting question. I think one thing I will say is, of course, I will also be willing to hear what you think about it. But I think I'm just thinking about like why I moved to Somerville in the first place. So we have a very developers in business want to move to Somerville because we have a very unique structure. We are very inclusive. We have also like it's about our culture. So it's I don't think that we need to. It's what you're trying to say. It's we need to find a balance, but I don't think that we are there yet because it's mostly like especially talking about establishing making sure that people come here and they don't displace the current people that have made the city what it is. I don't think it's too much of an ask, and also they are coming here because they know we have something. So it's pretty, I also don't want to alienate also like development, but I want development to happen, but I want community-led development because if you don't develop with the community in mind, with people in mind, because we live here, we are the people that are going to face the consequences of this development after they've come and done what they had to do and then leave. So I would be also interested to hear what you think, Tom.
Well, just a kind of a follow-up. Do you, how we've gone through, about 5 years of torturous times to get a new zoning ordinance in the city. And I know, you've worked on it, for years. Mark has. I see Mark's on here today. are you in supportive of that, ordinance? As far as, I know you've worked on it. There have been some tweaks and things like that, but one of the big pieces of the ordinance was that we wanted everything to be predictable. So are you happy with the new zoning ordinance, and are you supportive of it?
Yes, I think it's a good ordinance, but we can also always tweak it because, for example, we need to optimize it in terms of making sure that we actually zone certain, like baseline development to make sure that we don't just have chains, like make sure that you really keep local businesses and allow them to thrive. Because if we don't kind of like have restriction where it's just a small business that can operate, before you know it, you have all these enormous businesses that will just blow out of proportion. And also, I also think that we can also optimize it by building homes for the future, making sure that, like recently I was thinking, I was asking George because I was like, was there something, in our zoning that we are building these houses where we have stations where people can even separate their food waste from recyclable and trash and stuff like that? He said, no. I said, this is something that we should be thinking about the future. So there's a lot we can tweak along the way. So it's not like this wasn't like I know like you included, you told me like you guys vote this thing and then we can tweak it as we go. So this is a great start. It's also streamlined, the process because the previous zoning has as many loopholes as there are street lights. And so this is a great tool that we have at the moment. Of course, we can keep optimizing it as we move along.
Okay. So in other words on that, if you saw there was a piece of the zoning ordinance that was hurting the development of future businesses, you'd be willing to take a look at it to tweak it, to kind of fine tune it.
Of course, but this is also going to involve all stakeholders. Don't get me wrong. It's not about, like what I heard in developers. Like, me, you know my values, you know what I stand, you know my principles. So yes, we will all look at it as a community and then try to see how we can find that fine balance.
Thank you, Will. Rocco DeRico, Tufts University.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Counselor, for joining us here today.
Absolutely. I knew you were here.
And just to note, Tufts University does make voluntary payments to Medford, Somerville, and Boston. And those payments are the exact same amount in all three cities. And we also do pay property taxes in Somerville. So I just want to make that note. And second, to note that, 3 of the top 10 employers in the city are nonprofits. 1 in 4 workers in the city work at nonprofits. There are many nonprofits that are part of the chamber, both large and small. Respond, the Welcome Project, Cambridge Health Alliance, Mass General, etc. Recently, the council has voted in favor of things that would negatively impact all nonprofits, both large and small, things like institutional master plans and mandatory pilot payments. As mayor, where do you stand on those issues, and what would you do to support nonprofits in the city of Somerville so we can continue to hire more people and continue to expand in the city?
Thank you, Derico. Good to see you. I think also on this issue, this is still, it's going to be a community process for that. It's going to be a community discussion because I cannot sit here and say X, Y, Z. I don't believe in just making some random statement just for the sake of making it. But I think that, having people come together and have this conversation and make sure that you open the books so that we can see. You remember when I started meeting with you, I was really impressed. I had no clue some of the things that Tufts was doing to our city. And I also realized that there's a lot that you could also be doing. So don't tell me that, we are at the point where you're already doing enough that you cannot do more. There's more you can do, especially for Tufts partners. And I don't need to go, but just to be specific with Tufts, I think I'm not here to alienate nonprofits or alienate progress, but I'm here to make sure that we build a city, with the community in mind. We are intentional in terms of every decision we make. You see what I mean? And so that will also we will look at that through even our charter reform and seeing what that means, how we were able to understand our desire among some of the increase. If you notice, like the charter reform the mayor has so much power. And so I want to be able to see that we can redistribute that power and also see how these different nonprofits fit in that whole ecosystem.
Right. Thank you, Will. I don't see any questions. Please use your computer indicator on raising your hand virtually. That's the easiest to see at this end. I want to throw in a question. Some of the elections, municipal elections, are nonpartisan. It doesn't matter what, if any party a candidate is affiliated with. That being said, what party do you identify with and why?
I identify with Democrat.
And why?
Why? Because of their values. So it's something that I really align with a lot, Just for example, I am pro-choice. Just, I can go on and on about my values, but that is just by saying that I identify as Democrat, I think that government can be a force for good for people's lives. So that's why.
Thank you. Jack Connolly has a question.
Thank you, Stephen, and good afternoon, Will. How are you today?
Good to see you, Jack. Thank you for being here.
Oh, not a problem. One of my major concerns after 30 years in elective office was for public safety. In your remarks, I didn't hear any mention of what your goals, concerns, observations are regarding how we handle police, fire, and emergency responses here in the city. From my point of view, government exists, number one, to provide for the public safety. Maybe you can outline your plans, especially with regards to the police and how you will maintain safety and what your priorities will be for our police, fire, and emergency response people.
Wow. Thank you, Jack. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm also glad you asked that question because it's I'm surprised that it never really I did not include that because it almost become I've sounded like a broken record on that. I have so number one, I have said it, we need a more equitable and diverse police force. As you can tell, it's not representative of the community. So it's also right now, I think that, we need and that diverse police force needs to reflect the community. Also, we realize that police are not also, most of the things that are happening, we'll dump everything on them. They don't need to respond to everything. So we need to reimagine, how that will look like and redistribute resources into alternative response, because I've spoken to a bunch of the police officers. They've told me, well, there are some things that, really we should not be doing. So we need to think about that and see how we can recalibrate that, remove, also redistribute those resources to, curtail the school to prison pipeline. Because imagine what has been happening in our system. This is even an institution that is built on racial hierarchy and subjugation. So we have a lot of work to do in our reimagining policing. But like you said, our number one duty as a public officials is public safety. So I'm, committed to making sure that, we live in a safe community that treat people also with dignity, and so we need empathetic police force. So, and I'm committed to that, especially for somebody like me who has been racially profiled in the city. I understand exactly. I have 2 Black kids. I have a Black wife. So I understand, like, even with this racial awakening stuff. So I'm sure that's probably why I did not really, like have that in here, but I know it's something that is dear to me, and I'll be committed to providing like a robust safety force that the community can also trust. Because right now we need to rebuild trust, in our community as far as public safety is concerned.
Can I do a quick follow-up, Will?
Absolutely, Jack. Anytime.
Thank you very much. There's been a lot of discussion in the city about a safe consumption, also known as safe injection sites. And recently there was a forum about that one topic. Number one, are you in support of such an effort? And secondly, where would such a consumption site be located here in Somerville?
Thank you, Jack, for that question. I want to say yes. I'm in support of safe injection site. Jack, as I know that we are, like a very compassionate city. So it's who we are. And in terms of where it has to be, I don't think that would be also like a community process that we can have that conversation, So we all know, like everybody knows somebody who has been impacted by the opioid epidemic. So I know for sure, I'm not trying to force somebody that but I know that like you talk to a few, 2-3 people, you will hear stories. So I don't know exactly, where that site will be located. But one thing I can promise you is that it will not happen in the closet. This conversation will be a public deliberation, public conversation, so that we can actually, like do what is best for our community.
All right.
So that will decide the location.
Thank you.
Makes sense?
Thank you, Will. Thank you,
Sure.
Jack. Not seeing another hand, I'll ask a question. Charter reform. There's a committee currently examining the issue, looking to come up with recommendations to the city on changing its charter. That means it's basically the constitution of the municipality, and it requires state approval. One of the biggest parts or suggestions that is circulating is that we move from an elected mayor to an appointed city manager. There are all sorts of other kinds of changes that can happen. Would you comment on the charter reform idea generally, and specifically on whether you support an elected mayor or a appointed city manager?
Wow. Thank you, Steve. Let me get So one thing that is clear is that we know that first, just as a general comment, the city council needs to be co-equal branch of government. For the city right now, it is not. I had a lot of time to think about just the different, like city manager and mayor and stuff. But I think right now it comes down to I oppose the city manager. We need our city council to act as co-equal branch of government relative to the mayor. And so that, because councilors are sent by residents from the different wards to deliver the progressive policies that they campaign on. So it's for charter reform, we will strengthen, like the city, the council. As a city councilor, I did not realize that I almost felt I was an activist. So it's good to give them the tools they need to hold the mayor accountable. I always believe that, like when people elected me 4 years ago, I told them, your job is to hold me accountable. So if you want to go and say, well, you've elected Will and you buy, well, I don't know. So we need to give the city council the tools they need to hold the mayor accountable and improve oversight of the mayoral administration. And in addition to that, the city council should also have the power to allocate money to specific portion of the city's budget, which currently it doesn't have right now. So that is my comment. And again, I'll wrap it up by saying I oppose the city manager perspective.
All right, thank you. Vladimir Benoit from the YMCA. Vladimir.
Thanks, Steve. Well, thank you for taking the time to really allow us to have access to and present our questions.
Absolutely.
My question is really around Vision Zero. In 2017, the city chose to adopt it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what your plans are to continue to carry that, and where are some of the major areas that you feel that really need improvement? Because I think in speaking to a lot of business owners, even residents, there's a friction among the different modes of commuting in the area. We all see that, and I think there's a bit of a knowledge opportunity that's available to us. So I'd love to kind of hear again your thoughts on what your plans are to kind of really help get us closer towards that.
Thank you, Vladimir. I guess, again, for something like this, as you probably know, we have a lot of work on this area, and there's no silver bullet for transportation in Somerville. So I don't know what you want to hear from me, but there needs to be a balance. So, because again, if families are going to live here, they will need cars, so there's all these different dynamics. So there's no silver bullet to something like this, but we need to prioritize things like alternative mode of transportation. Like I mentioned before, bike lanes, bus lanes, and stuff like that. So right now, even electric vehicle charging station, we need to create all these different co-mobility, shared mobility, or eco-mobility, as you call it, without taking away city parking as well.
You're muted, Steve.
Did you have a follow-up, Vladimir?
Oh, no, I was just saying thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir.
Jessica Braden from Respond.
Hi, Will. How are you?
Hi, Jess. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. We're very fortunate that the Chamber is allowing us access with the candidates. And I've enjoyed these sessions tremendously. Can you tell me what makes you stand out from the other candidates?
Wow, Jess, that's an excellent question. I think one thing that is clear is my lived experiences. That is all. That is I am related to all the issues that I'm talking about. If you want me to go into details, I like Jess, you're a friend of mine. I'm black. I'm a black person. You know that, and I've been racially profiled. I'm an environmental scientist. so I don't need to me. So I don't need to remind you about my profile. But all these things, put me on another lane. I'm the only person running with a background in STEM.
Okay. Are you good, Jessica? Okay. Adam Portney, Middlesex Federal.
Hey, Will, how are you?
Oh, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. So I'm just curious. I asked a variation of this question last week to Katiana. What, with the new, with the city councilors trying to take on more power and take on possibly a staff in a full-time position, that would degrade the power of the office that you're now running for and give more power to the office that you are leaving. Where do you stand on city councilors being full-time and having staffs going forward? And do you think that's necessary, especially with all the other projects that you want to fund?
Steve?
Did you hear that question, Will?
I think I did not get the last one. I think he went. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I can
Yes,
hear
so,
you.
Steve,
Could you, all right, give it another chance. Adam, would you summarize the question?
If you can, do you hear me now?
Yes.
yeah, I
All
hear
right, sorry, I'm having bad internet. My question was just, where do you stand on expanding the powers of the city council to being full-time positions and having staffs as someone
Wow.
coming from the city council?
Yes, no,
And whether that's a
I say,
necessary thing.
yes, no, look, this is like, I cannot wait, even though I'm leaving from this position or like to something else, even if I don't win, but I think this should be a full-time job because I've been doing 2 full-time jobs. And so it should not be, yeah, so it's been like having, you know, like, and also we cannot continue to exhaust people like that. It's this job, you know, I believe that, you know, and this can be done through charter reform. So the city, we need to believe, you know, like to see the work, like the city is moved so fast and making the position of city councilor to full-time is great. This could be done through charter reform, or this could be done through increasing the city councilor salary so that it's more competitive and reflects the salary of a full-time job. You know, we are not currently giving the city council the tools that they need to succeed, like I said. Look at Cambridge, for example. The city council has a staff, a legislative aid, you know, and a legal counsel to advise them on dispute, including disputes, you know, with the mayor. But we don't have that. So
Yeah,
we
but the
need
city council the city council is set up different in Cambridge, right? Like, so in that situation, your job that you're running for wouldn't exist. Like
yes.
So it's kind of a one or the other. So you're running for this other job.
You just froze. You just froze, Adam. Adam, maybe we'll try to come back to you. I'm going to go ahead with a question in the chat. Residents voted for a ballot question in November in favor of ranked choice voting in statewide elections. Would you support ranked choice voting for city elections? And are there other changes to city elections that you'd support? For instance, early voting.
Yes, Steve, I support ranked choice voting. You know, it enhances our democracy and better reflects the will of the people. So yes.
And all right, I'll ask Kevin Gatlin.
Thank you. Welcome, Will. Thanks for joining us here.
Absolutely.
Next question, the question I want to ask you, I've been asking of all the candidates, so now it's your turn. When this is a thing we've faced for a number of years now here at the Chamber, but I think as businesses across the city. And it really is a question of I don't want to say access so much, but typically when the city decides to address a particular issue, work is being done by the administration or by someone, goes on for weeks, months perhaps in research and getting information together, and sooner or later there's an ordinance or some policy that's formed, and you find yourself at a city council meeting. In some cases, this is the first time people have heard of it, or they've seen something advertised about it a week or two prior. But as we know, the real work in putting these things together takes many, many months. And in so doing, putting those ordinances together has a sort of momentum to it. So by the time it makes a city council public hearing, the concrete's pretty much set at that point. When you get to the hearing, you have 2 minutes to express your opinion, and it is what it is. Some of these issues that come up are those that impact the businesses here in Somerville. And it would make sense that the Chamber of Commerce or other business groups are brought into that process much earlier, not at the City Council public hearing, but those many months that precede that, when the information is being sought, the research is being done, to weigh in on it. Now, the Chamber may or may not agree with the policy, but at least there's a chance for the businesses of the city to have their voices heard. In your role as mayor, what would you do to help promote the voice of businesses here in Somerville to be able to weigh in on variety of issues that come up from time to time rather than limiting them to 2 minutes in front of a microphone.
Thank you, Kevin. I want to say small businesses in my administration will have a seat at the table, but also, residents, we need, I agree, we need to do a better job collaborating and working together. That is clear. You don't need to, we don't need to remind ourselves about that, So as mayor, I will foster an environment that does that for sure. We need to be more inclusive.
All right. Thank you, Will. Francisco Lugo Rodriguez has a question. Is there a plan currently or in your term, if elected, to implement more EV charging stations in the city's specific locations such as shopping plazas, municipal parking lots, and in the very busy area of Assembly?
Yeah, we already have that. We just need to optimize it and even, have a process where we can even collaborate with private businesses to optimize that or scale it up. We should not also take away public parking for sure.
All right. We have just a few minutes left. Please raise your hand if you have a question or if anybody that's asked a question has a follow-up. Is there anything further that, let's see, Pat Kane, Cooper Kane Group.
I have billions of questions, but one that I asked a couple weeks ago and everybody said, that's a good question, is in Washington, we always joke that you don't elect a president, you elect him or her friends, because the president is kind of the figurehead and all the work is done by the underlings kind of thing. If you're successful and become mayor, who are going to rely on to get some of the best things to come out right and things to succeed?
Wow. Thank you, Pat.
Questions.
No, this is great. This is an excellent question. I have said it, time and again that I will start my administration with a competent, diverse group, of folks, who also have shared some of these, lead experiences that I have, because that would be good to also see that in that core administration. And also, we have all these different nonprofits that I will want to, tap into. I don't think that we have done a good job with all these different nonprofits that we have in the city, like the homeless, like people who work with the homeless shelter, like Respond, CAS. There's so we have an opportunity to come together and really reignite ourselves or reinvigorate, our community in the best possible way. And that is the way I would do it, with very inclusive, robust, diverse, competent team of experts that actually have experience and live experiences with the issues. And also in the field that they're working on as well.
I'll follow up on that. Could you identify their very different public safety, public education, public works, chief financial officer, auditor, etc.? Any one of those positions stand out to you as needing attention in the beginning of your administration?
Not right now. We have time to, I think we need, I have to say this city is not falling off a cliff, Steve. We are already a well-run city with, a whole national profile. So we need to, be very methodical as we move to create, a system where we want to optimize it or scale it up. So, so right now, I think I haven't thought that far, but it will be under consideration. We'll all zoom into it together. I will need also all the input I can get from, like folks like you and other members of this community that have invested so much and know so much that even predates my time here in the United States.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just would like to add that, we are in line with you about Somerville's terrific standing of late in the world, that the chamber has been a great promoter of that and cheerleader all along the way. But good times don't always last forever, and income streams get interrupted by fate and error and so forth. So you're not always on the top of the world. So that being said, anybody else have any closing questions? We're down to the final 2 minutes. And if not, Jack Perenick. Jack?
Hi there. I just have a quick question as to how you value growth over stability in emerging economic areas in Somerville. So to the extent that you have a new corridor that's really seeing growth, how do you value keeping that area stable versus expanding the economic abilities of a particular region?
Interesting. That's an interesting one. I think I don't want to just give you, this is where we will need like this community conversation so we can actually see where we are, take stocks of our progress and then see where we want to go. But I'll be interested to hear from you, because what do you think?
Well, because you think, right, when you hold some sort of an area that is burdened by restrictions, or you need to alleviate some pressures, I was just curious how you would approach something like that. If you have an area that is in rapid economic expansion and is quite prosperous, what do you do to help keep it that way and make sure that the expansion and growth, make sure that that area stays competitive? What kind of public availabilities, you mentioned parking earlier, are there ways that you can expand some of these resources that help limit the costs to businesses in an area to help it keep that rate of growth?
It's like a lot of, that's a lot of,
Well,
it's not,
well,
it's
we're,
not, yeah, it's not really something, I cannot think about like, I just don't want to make an answer. I don't think that this is like a silver bullet in this direction. This is not an answer that just require, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I don't operate like that.
It's a big question. Maybe we should have started with it rather than try to squeeze it in the last minute. We are up on the hour. I want to give the candidate an opportunity to make any 20-second, 30-second closing remarks before we conclude. Will?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Like I said, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, this is my longest, this is where I started in the city, and I said it, so I volunteered from day one that I moved into this community. So I said, I know we don't always agree, but I'm committed to listening because I know that feeling as somebody like myself who always felt like nobody's listening to me. I know how frustrating it is, and I'm committed to listen and to work together as a community. And thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate it a great deal. We look forward to further discussions and dialogue. So thank you. To our audience, we want to welcome, thank you for being here and for your participation. Next week, noon on Tuesday, we will have mayoral candidate Mary Casesso. I want to thank you all for joining us. Bye.
Okay, have a great day.